Ladies and gentlemen, your sweet Zionist prince, Tall, the traveling clap, back here from the land of Israel. We're taking a look at a clip here from Ben Shapiro once again. Let's take a look.
Hello. My question is going to be about the Israel-Palestine issue, and let it be known that I'm not a big from the river to the sea kind of person. My question is about your claim about Israel always having its doors open to peace for a two-state solution. And I just don't think this narrative is true. I don't think that any Israeli prime minister since Yitzhak Rabin has really had their doors open for peace. And Yitzhak Rabin, the most open for peace Israeli prime minister of all time, was shot by an Israeli extremist who was motivated by Jewish fundamentalism, which as a Jew I find really appalling that was the closest we've ever got to peace. And it was our very own religious fundamentalists that stopped that from happening. I don't think that Israel does currently have its doors open for peace. Benjamin Netanyahu has made his voice opposed to the two-state solution very often. Israel is under the control of a minority settler population who are not willing to give up on the land of Judea and Samaria, which is land that needs to be given up in order to achieve peace. So I just don't think this is true. And yes, I don't think Hamas has its doors open for peace either. But this does not change the fact that Israel is culpable for also this current situation in which it is not willing to negotiate because it views the entire land as its own. Look at the nation-state law. The Judea, Samaria, Golan, everything, it's all meant to be exclusive Jewish sovereignty.
Okay, so let's talk about the history for a second. To suggest that
Before Ben Shapiro chaps in, I want to say something myself. This man speaks like a true British colonizer. And he's not colonizing because he's a Jew, he's colonized in his mentality. Do you think, young chap, young lad, young laddie, do you think that for one moment, if you were to give the Palestinians their state in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria, you would give them the Palestinian state? Do you think that there would be peace? Sir, I ask you to contemplate on this reality. Do you think that if we were to give up Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, if we were to give it for a Palestinian state, that there would be peace, sir? Do you not think for one moment that the Palestinians would rightfully come up and attack us immediately with a third intifada they called a holy war, to try to free Al-Aqsa and their eternal place of worship, the Dome of the Rock, that Allah alayhi wasallam Muhammad came down on a donkey, a flying donkey, and created into a Muslim holy site? Do you not think so, young laddie? Let's let Ben Shapiro chime in. And for me to not be as sarcastic.
the last Israeli prime minister who's in favor of peace was Yitzhak Rabin. I'm sorry, but it's just historically inaccurate. Shimon Peres, who was Yitzhak Rabin's partner in the peace plan, was prime minister. Ehud Barak, who is so far to the left that he makes Yitzhak Rabin look like a piker, was the prime minister and offered a peace deal in 2000. Ehud Olmert offered an incredibly generous peace deal, much greater even than the 2000 peace deal, rejected by Arafat and Mahmoud Abbas. So that's just historically inaccurate. The idea that Yitzhak Rabin was simply willing, even at the time, this is not even what the Oslo Accords say. The Oslo Accords really kind of embody some of the things that I was saying about a gradualistic process of surrender of some parts of the land, which is why you still have areas A, B, and C. When it comes to the idea that Israel as a whole is somehow culpable for a terrorist group that calls for its extermination, running into its center and murdering 1,500 Jews is deeply immoral. That's deeply immoral. You're not talking about people who are arguing in favor of some sort of land for peace settlement. The people who ran in are arguing for the extirpation of every Jew from the region. Every Jew. And as far as the idea that Israel is somehow ethnically intolerant as opposed to its neighbors, that's untrue as well. Israel is 20% Arab. Gaza has 0 Jews, 0. The Palestinian Authority has 0 Jews living under its authority, nor could they be trusted to have Jews living under their authority, given the fact that when Jews accidentally drive into Ramallah, they're in danger of being lynched, which is...
And by the way, something that nobody talks about, in Jewish settlements, the Jewish towns, it's rare, it doesn't happen often, there are Arab Muslims who live and shop and work in them. In the city of Ariel, there is literally an Arab Muslim Palestinian who has a falafel shop and a hummus shop inside of Ariel proper, from the territories. There are Palestinian students who study in Ariel University in a settlement, quote unquote. I think that's a racist term. So nobody ever adds that statistic, but they literally coexist in Jewish territory. Not one Palestinian Authority or Gazan territory has a Jew living in. Not one. That's where the real apartheid is.
Certainly not true of the tens of thousands of Palestinians who every single day are given work permits into Israel, including, by the way, people from the Gaza Strip who had work permits into Israel, some of whom then went back and gave information to Hamas on the specific locations and number of people in each house in these various moshavim, those are the villages, in the Gaza envelope. So to suggest that it's Bibi Netanyahu's fault that Hamas murdered 1,500 people, again, ignoring the fact that Hamas has been firing rockets on Israel continuously for about a 17-year period at this point, spanning governments of both the left and the right. Bibi Netanyahu wasn't even prime minister a year and a half ago. It was Yair Lapid, who was very much to the left. So to make the argument that somehow Israel has a responsibility to make a quote-unquote two-state solution with the current partners is totally crazy. Who's the partner? It would be one thing to argue if there was a liberal-minded partner that actually sought peace. But what you're talking about is a Palestinian Authority. The most liberal partner that is there is the Palestinian Authority, which right now, today, is paying Hamas terrorists a stipend for having killed Jews. Those are not people you can make a peace deal with.
I mean, I understand that Hamas is not a group you can make peace with, but I do think that Israel has made a concerted effort to destroy every group it could possibly make peace deal with. In 2019, Netanyahu said that the best way to stop Palestinian statehood, which is his aim, was to fund and empower Hamas in order to further the divide between Gaza and West Bank. This is what he believed should be done in order to prevent Palestinian statehood. And second, when you talk about Ehud Barak, as being a leader who was very willing to open a peace deal, I think that the reason why the 2000 peace deal failed was because ultimately Israel was not willing to give up control over the Temple Mount, which is for Muslims the Alaska compound, which is something as a secular Jew I think should have been given up in order for peace. But I can understand that religious people might struggle with that. But at the same time, I think that Arafat was...
God bless that religious secular Jews like this kid is not in charge of Israel, because if so, we wouldn't have anything. In his reality, we need to give up Judea and Samaria. We need to give up the Temple Mount. We need to give up the old city of Jerusalem. Just give everything to the Arab Muslims and let them fully colonize the entire region. Leave no resistance against the colonizations of Arab Muslims from Saudi Arabia, from the Arabian Peninsula, who have colonized this giant swath of land. Leave them nothing to fight against. We'll have Tel Aviv, and we'll live there until they take that over also. That's fine. What are you talking about, bro? That's an insane reality. Why should we give up everything to the people who literally colonized the entire region? Why should we do something like that?
Was under a condition where he to open a peace deal. I think that the reason why the 2000...
I want to repeat another point.
Israel has made a concerted effort to destroy every group it could possibly make peace deal with. In 2019, Netanyahu said that the best way to stop Palestinian statehood, which is his aim, was to fund and empower Hamas in order to further the divide between Gaza and...
He makes a claim that Israel... You know, this is where me and Ben Shapiro will disagree heavily, because I know I've seen Ben Shapiro propagate the idea of a two-state solution multiple times. I think most people who live in Israel, I think that's the difference. Ben Shapiro lives in America. He doesn't live in Israel. I don't think he should decide what we do here for the people who live in Israel. Most people who live here in Israel will say we don't want a two-state solution. We don't trust the idea of a two-state solution. It's horrible for us. Where is the moral, ethical justification to creating a 23rd Arab ethno-state in the Middle East and a 50-something Muslim supremacist state in the world? Give me one moral justification. One. You can leave it in the comments down below right now. One moral, ethical justification to creating another Arab state, 23rd Arab state on this world, that will serve the purposes of Arabs and Arabs only. If you are not an Arab, if you don't identify as an Arab, if you are not a Muslim Arab, you will be discriminated against. Definitively, because that's what happens now. That's what Palestinian society does now, in both the Gaza Strip and in the Palestinian territories in the PA. So give me the moral justification to doing that again. One, leave it in the comments now.
And West Bank. This is what he believed should be done in order to prevent Palestinian statehood. And second, when you talk about Ehud Barak, as being a leader who was very willing to open a peace deal, I think that the reason why the 2000 peace deal failed was because ultimately Israel was not willing to give up control over the Temple Mount, which is for Muslims the Alaska compound, which is something as a secular Jew I think should have been given up in order for peace, but I can understand that religious people might struggle with that. But at the same time, I think that Arafat was under a condition where he could not have given up permanently sovereignty over Alaska compound because he would have had a fatwa against him.
Okay, so your argument is actually my argument, which is that Arafat could not have accepted a peace deal offered to him because his own people would have murdered him for having made any sort of peace deal, which, by the way, I agree with. I think that's true.
Not any sort of peace deal, a peace deal that gave up the Temple Mount, and I would have liked...
No, okay, so the idea that, first of all, we should point out that having been on the Temple Mount multiple times,
I've tried. I dressed up as a Muslim to try and get onto the Temple Mount.
Well, yeah,
there's a picture of that happening.
By the way, you don't... So, if you'd like the hookup, I can make it happen. It's not difficult. All you have to do is walk up a particular tunnel, and you can go out onto the Temple Mount. Anyone can, but only Muslims can pray there. Only Muslims can pray on the Temple Mount. That is the current law.
I went on the wrong day. It wasn't open to foreigners that day.
I mean,
but I tried
I'm
anyway.
just telling you, it is a fact of the matter. I've seen people arrested for attempting to pray, to open a prayer book that is in Hebrew on the Temple Mount. Only Muslims can pray on the Temple Mount. The Islamic Waqf is in technical control of the Temple Mount. So to put aside the politics of the Temple Mount for a second, once again, the argument that I'm making is that there is no party on the other side. Please name the party on the other side with which the Israelis should currently negotiate.
Not currently, because as I've said,
so then we
Israel
agree.
has tried. Israel has assassinated leading Arab academics, leading Palestinian academics. During the Nakba in 1948, Israel kept largely rural areas in the Galilee intact, but they went after urban areas where there were Palestinian academics. There had been a concerted effort to make sure that I think...
You're saying the war strategy of the Israelis in 1948 was to go after Palestinian academics?
They went after urban Palestinian life.
It turns out that wars typically take place.
That is the craziest fucking theory I have heard about this. Man, if I was there, I don't know how Ben Shapiro held it in so well, because I think his brain is wired to keep going. I would have pissed my pants. That is the funniest shit I've ever heard. Wait, so where are all the other fucking Arab academics in the world right now? Where are they? In Jordan? In Egypt? In Egypt, which has the fucking most populous Arab population, and they're just a bunch of dubbies? You haven't been able to accomplish anything in the last 70 years? Where is it? In Jordan? Where? In Lebanon? Give me one country where there's an Arab academic that's succeeding. Where? Maybe besides the Gulf, which kind of detached them from themselves from the rest of the places that they colonized. What the fuck are you on about, kid? What are you on about? What happened to my screen?
In heavily urbanized areas and not in open fields.
I mean, it was a largely rural area at the time, so I don't think that's right either. So,
well, I mean, that happens to be right. The biggest battles around the 1948 War of Independence, the Battle of Latrun, which is a battle between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem to open the road to Jerusalem. There were hotly fought battles in the streets of Safed, Tzfat. So, I mean, there were battles in every populated area of the region, clearly, because it was a war for the establishment of the State of Israel. So, once it... First of all, not particularly unusual considering that the Allies, including this country, promptly after World War II depopulated Poland to the sound of 2 million Germans depopulated from Poland back into Germany, repatriated back into Germany that nobody ever talks about. Nobody's talking today about the fact that right now...
Okay, I think we need to wrap up there.
What a boss. The kid down there was like, all right, kid, you need to shut the fuck up. You're embarrassing all of us. You know, shout out to Ronald Weasley down here.
Permits into Israel.
Ronald, where is he? Shout out to Ronald Weasley down here. This guy right here, innit? Shout out to Ronald Weasley for fucking shutting the other kid up. He was like, all right, kid, you need to shut the fuck up, mate. You're embarrassing all of us. Thank you so much. Oh, man, there's nothing left to add. Ben Shapiro destroyed another stupid college kid. See you guys in the next one. I love you a long time. Goodbye, class. Support my channel. Buy some merchandise. Love you. If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on thetravelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat, or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.